We're recording.
We
See.
are recording. Good afternoon, everybody. Watching all the numbers come in as people are joining us. We're hoping you've all got your coffee, you've all got your tea, whatever time of day beverage you require. Ben, you got your glass of water, haven't you?
Mm-hmm.
I've
Yeah,
got I've got my
cappuccino.
diet Pepsi. We're not going to judge. Let's get everybody on board. Welcome. To this is the Creative Tools Workshop Series Cohort 2. So we did the pilot earlier in the year, and which was 10 sessions. And thank you very much to the team at Aspect for commissioning from that pilot a second series. We've taken on learnings and feedback from series one. We've made the sessions longer. This one, we ran over the hour last time, didn't we, Ben? So we've made them longer. We've got more time for interaction, more time for questions, more time for doing. So we're going to be doing a live build in Squarespace. Anything could happen. It's going to be very exciting. But thank you very much for Aspect for commissioning it, and thank you all for signing up and joining us. And hopefully you know what the schedule is. We've already had impactful graphics with Canva, where we did touch a little bit on the fact that Canva can make websites, but didn't go too far into it because of this session today. On Tuesday, we were creating engaging video content with Ross and having some great ideas about the hero stories. And a theme that's going to come across all of these sessions is, why are you doing this? Well, who are you talking to? What is the plan? What is the audience? What's the return on investment? As we all discovered how much it costs to make animation, especially videos. It's a big investment. We need to know why you're doing it versus what you can actually create with the amazing cameras we all have in our pockets. Today, we're going to be crafting effective websites. And hopefully, you've all got invitations in your diaries to the Easy Apps with Mark next week, which I was astounded by last time. I really didn't realize how far apps are coming to more of a plug and play than they used to be. That's one of the final dark arts for me. Producing impactful podcasts. Again, another really powerful way of getting your project across in different ways, visually and creatively. And then we finish up with leveraging AI tools. So we've got a really brilliant partner coming in to do that, to wade through the noise of AI, to go, here are the tools that really can help you on your projects. So crafting effective websites is where we're going to start off. And to make sure you're all awake, I'm going to launch a poll about why you're here, basically, your website plans. Are you planning to create a website for your project? Is it in progress? Is it in planning? Maybe. No, but I feel like I might in the future. So I want to come along and dig into Ben's brains to make sure I get started in the right direction. We've got a good mix, Ben. Some people are in progress, some people are in planning. I mean, we have no empty boxes. Everyone's got a really good reason for being here. Thank you, everybody. There's still some voting going on. We're just going to give it another minute. Cool. And I think so. There you go. You can all see that. So yes, in progress.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, in planning, maybe, and no by might in the future. So lots of different stages. But I think with all these topics, there's always more you can learn. So even if it's something you've done before, I think it's always something you can learn more about or get best practice on from a brain like yourself, Ben. So I'm going to hand over now
Super. Okay, great. I'm going to
for our
try.
education. I always learn so much on these sessions because I've built websites, but you get rusty.
All right, let
The
me see.
technology changes and also best practice changes. Right? We can see your slides.
Okay, can you see it when I change screen? Can
No,
you see Miro now? Okay,
no, which we could do
s-
earlier. That's annoying,
I'm going
isn't
to
it?
stop
Try
that.
again.
Try again. Just
Yay,
going to do the
tech.
whole window. How's that?
I've got creating crafting effective websites, and I'm moving over to Miro. There we
All
go.
right, sweet. Okay,
Perfect.
we're in a good place. I'll start then.
And the way this is going to work, I should let everybody know. Do put your questions in chat. So Ben can't see the chat, but I can. So I should also say my name is Lucy, and I work for the University of Bath as an entrepreneur in residence, and I'm here as your host today. Ben, I actually always forget to tell everyone who I am. I think everyone who's on here already knows me. But yeah, do put your questions in chat. I will be keeping an eye on them for Ben, and some we might wait until a natural break. Some might be really important in the moment. Ben's used to me. We've done this before, so do feel free to talk to us.
Yeah, yeah, do interrupt. So
Yeah,
that's
pop things
fine.
in the chat. That'd be great. Thank you, everyone.
So yeah, so we're going to be talking about websites today. I'm Ben. I run a consultancy called the B Team, and we produce websites for these folks. We've got quite a strong track record in producing websites which communicate research with the aim of expanding that reach of that research to other researchers, but also influencing policy and making changes and that sort of thing. So yeah, that's the intro done. We're going to go through this in a sort of structure of a design process from the start to the finish of designing and building a website. And I talk about what you can consider at each stage. So it might be that some of you are part way through this process already. Hopefully that will help you if you've done some of this already. But equally, I'm approaching this assuming that you haven't done any of this. It's something that's completely new to you as well. Let me just minimize that bit. As Lucy said, please add questions as we go. I can't see them, but Lucy will triage them and interrupt me as we go if we need to. And then also, I'm going to share the slides after the webinar. I've put links in lots of the slides, so there's further information from different topics you can go to, and there's some tips at the end which we may or may not have time for that you can look at as well. So yeah, it's worth picking up the file or the link to the presentation after to keep hold of it. Okay. Yeah, it'll be recorded. So if you do have to disappear, you can get the rest of the recording.
And we'll pop them all on the YouTube channel. So I will share that link in the post-event email.
Super. Okay, yeah, that's a good idea. So yeah, the design process, like broadly, I think there's probably two approaches you might be considering. So you can either go with a website builder tool like WordPress or Squarespace or Wix. So there's lots of these. Usually they sort of work on a subscription basis. You'll have a monthly subscription. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through setting up a website with Squarespace later in the webinar. The other approach is using a freelance designer or developer or web agency to produce your website. It's likely that budget's going to dictate what approach you take. If you've got budget for creating a website as part of your project, then great. If you don't, then it's worth picking up tools and trying to create that yourself. Yes, and also it is worth sort of getting to grips with trying to create prototypes or test versions of websites yourself, just so you can get yourself partway through the design process. And also just try things out, see how it goes, and see if you build a prototype, you can test it and share it with people to get feedback.
I always think it's like when, this is a very girly analogy, it's when you go and get your hair cut. It's good to take a picture of what you want. And it's the same with a website. I think if you go and kind of try and explain what you want it to do and how you want it to look and feel, I think it's really hard as an agency to understand. It's that communication process, isn't it? Whereas if you go with some mock-ups, which you could have done in Canva, obviously if you came to the first session, you can say, look, this is the look and feel, this is our brand palette, this is the key messaging. I think it just really speeds up the process with you if they're engaging you to do it for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's that thing of you've got something visual you can talk about. It does help.
Yeah, it takes it away from the blank sheet of paper, which is always really difficult from any design process. So yeah, if you've already built some assets, some leaflets or social media pieces in social, they could be the foundation of what your website V1 in your head looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first step of the process is you're trying to define what you need. What your website needs to do, and the basis of that is what you or your organization needs that website to do. What's your sort of strategic goal for it? Then you need to think about what audiences will be using the website. So what groups of audiences. We'll have a bit on that later on, sort of how we divide those up and how we can sort of treat them. And then for each audience, what they'll want to do there, what's the action they need to perform or the goal they're trying to reach. You can use this as the basis of a design brief. You can use that to get funding applications, or if it's useful to you if you're self-creating a website, because it gives you something to sort of aim for and measure what you're doing against. And of course, it's useful to create a sort of design brief for agencies or freelancers if you're approaching them.
We're really brutal on this whole start with why, aren't we? It's like, because we've almost got this is actually also asking, do you need a website?
Yes.
In the nicest possible way. It's like, and also what a website feels quite expansive. It could just be a landing page. It could be very simple.
Yeah, absolutely. So the approach we sort of go through is this purpose exercise for you or your organization. And we are start at the top left. So what you do. So, what are your organizational sort of outputs or services or functions? And then who do you do it for? So that's a list of audiences. So that could be, researchers, policymakers, government officials, teachers, that sort of thing. Why is sort of why you do it. Why are you doing this? What need are you sort of meeting? And then why you do it better. So sometimes it's useful to have this sort of competitive advantage sort of question around, why are you in a better position to do this than, say, other institutions or other organizations? I'll show you an example of this. This is from, what is it from? This is from a biomedical research centre we did, Bristol Biomedical Research Centre, I think. So in terms of what they do, obviously there's, they conduct biomedical research. There's themes that they work around, so rehabilitation, clinical mycology, and so forth. There's partnerships with industry, there's training, these sorts of things. So that sort of covers what you do. And in terms of who for, we have this list of different audiences. Now, there's quite a lot here. Usually we kind of have 4 or 5. And this is good to sort of expose these audiences and think about them being, separate. They have different needs. The why is, ultimately for the medical research or the biological research centre, it's trying to improve patient outcomes. And then a second part of it is building the research workforce of the future, so training, PhDs, so on and so forth. And then in terms of, examples of why they do it better, so Bristol, the BRC in Bristol covers the southwest and it's the biggest geographical area. We're world leading in PPIE, that sort of thing. So that's an example of that exercise for an
Well,
organization.
I love Miro. I love the post-it notes because you could share this in your team. If your team's remote, you can do this online as a as
Yeah,
a
I
as a
mean,
as a conversation.
yeah, well,
And
we
it's
tend to do this in a workshop scenario, so we'll invite
yeah,
the client to that. So if there's a few of you that you can group together, the people we ask for to attend these are people that know the audiences.
yep.
So we'll have someone from the research function, we'll have someone from the training function, so on and so forth, to give us an idea about these audiences, because the next bit is looking at each audience in turn.
And it's really great to do it with post-it notes as you would in a physical room because you can
Mm,
have a debate. Does that post because you can people can put post-it notes in and then we can talk about it and you might remove it or you might edit it. It's just a really great conversational way to build this. I'm a big fan of Miro. I'm a big fan of
yeah.
post-it notes, but post-it notes are a bit of a disaster to write up afterwards.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, the Post-it have an app that you can
Yeah.
photograph your Post-it notes, and it does OCR, like optical character recognition, so it converts your Post-its into text for you.
Oh, that's cool.
But
But yes,
yeah, I mean, we
Miro is a
haven't
great
done
tool.
in-person workshops in a couple of years now. It just seems everything is online now. But yeah, um, so that's an example of an exercise that's good for sort of trying to distill what you're doing, who for, why, etc. And the link to the example is there. So if you get the slides afterwards, you can have a bit more, look in a bit more detail. Um, so the second step, as I sort of mentioned, is thinking about your audiences. And we do this to put the users of the website at the heart of the design process. We've started by listing them. And then what we want to do is sort of gather what we know about them. So, what do they do? A bit of a description of their day to day, and what tasks do they want to achieve and why. There's this example, which is from the Biomedical Research Centre project I mentioned before. So in terms of, this audience is the patient slash public. So this includes patient groups. We want to kind of show how they can get involved in research. And the public may be interested in finding out something about a specific theme. So they might be thinking about, say, dementia, and therefore they'll be looking into, neurodegeneration as a theme. And you can see, whoops, in these blue boxes, we've got their sort of tasks or user stories, and they're always written with in the form of I want to do X, so I can do Y. So you understand with that second bit a bit about their motivation and what they want to achieve, really. So In this case, interested in finding out information about a specific research topic or theme because I have a related illness. Um, wanted to keep up to date on research and if there's any potential future breakthroughs, or sign up to join a patient group so I can participate. Now, these tasks are things that we can use to design the website with. We know that, we've got this sign up function, so we need to design a form. We want to, be able to satisfy the goal that people can see the up-to-date research. So we need somewhere to list latest research, for example. So this helps make sure that whatever you're creating is going to satisfy your end user needs, and be successful. In the Miro board, the rest of the stuff we have, actually it's this example, I think. No, that's something else. Actually, there it is. Yeah, so there's an example in that Miro board that you can see. Okay. User research is something that's often quite useful to do. It's something you can do yourself as well. Speaking to users in an audience. We often use this technique if we don't know something or we don't know an audience particularly well, or if one audience is really important, then it's really useful to do. There's sort of two types generally that we conduct. So surveys, usually we do them online. They're quite good because people can do them on their own time. And, we can get a lot of data from this if we've got an engaged audience. And then with interviews, we're big fans of sort of semi-structured one-to-one interviews. We generally aim for about 5 people per audience to do that. I said semi-structured, so we create a theme guide of things we want to explore, but they're often quite organic and they follow kind of tangents in those interviews. But these are useful to sort of further understand those audiences. So if you find yourself, looking at those personas that we created, that we looked in this slide, if you find one which isn't particularly well populated, you haven't got many boxes on, or you're not really quite sure what their setting is, then that might indicate that user research is a good thing to do. Okay. The next stage, so once we've done our research and we've thought about audiences and what his organization does, the next stage is developing an information architecture, which is a fancy name for a sitemap, really. It's a blueprint for your website structure, functionality, and content. And at its most sort of basic level, it looks something like this, where you've got pages, and the pages are in boxes, and you can see a bit of a hierarchy going on here. For each of those boxes, you can add a bit more detail. So say for the services page, what we want to think about is, what content goes on that page? What does that content tell people? What functionality is there? Is there anything that's interactive, or can they filter or sort or search for things? And then what sort of template should it use? What design does it use? These can then be referenced against your audience key tasks that we develop. So we can check that, for each of those key tasks, can we find a page in the architecture that we think will have the content or functionality to solve that task? This is how we sort of lay these out. We've got an example in the other presentation as well. So it was here, so you can see this is for a research study website, which is about paramedics being placed in doctors' surgeries. And the study was called Ready. And so on the About page, we can see, the name of it's About Ready. The template is number 2. And the bullet points in this yellow box is the content, or what the topics that the content has to cover. So about the research, the people involved, the fact that it's funded by the NIHR, and there's an acknowledgement. So the bit of text you have to write if you want to acknowledge this research, so on and so forth. So we can build a structure like this, and then when we go to our key tasks, we can see where in this structure can we complete this task. And if you can't,
this can become a beast, can't it? And this is also a good thing to do, because otherwise you can
yeah,
end up with this massive website, because there's all the things as you were about to say, does it really tick into what we really need to do? Because you can end up creating so many pages that nobody goes to.
Yeah, there's this is why we focus on user needs, because
Yeah,
that's the base level. We do have um you want to meet user needs, and that's your primary goal, but you also have to satisfy the organization's strategy. And sometimes those two things are not so well aligned, and you
yeah,
do need pages for specific reasons for the organization that have no user needs. Like, we need to say who we're funded by, even
yeah.
though the public doesn't care. So, um, but by doing that, you can at this first level, this tells you what you're building, and you can verify it with this user-centered design approach.
And you also look at consolidation, don't you, and rationalization of actually are we saying the same things twice? Because you don't want to build all of these pages and then realize no one's going to them. Apart from, as you said, there are some standard terms, conditions, or whatever it is that people don't read. But if you build a rich piece of a page that nobody ever goes to,
Mm,
we'd like to avoid that really with this process.
yes, exactly. Um, Super. So that's your site structure. Um, there's a few other things that can help if you're building something that's a bit more complex. So a user flow diagram is quite useful if someone's trying to solve a complex task, and it just looks like a flow chart, really. You can see there's pages of these boxes, decisions of the diamonds, and then you've got different routes off that. For this, it's a simple sort of e-commerce process where someone's logging in, viewing their account details, and paying a credit card. If they can't remember their login info, then there's a reset process, that sort of thing. It's useful to map out these avenues which people can go down when you've got, some more complex functionality. Um, User journey mapping is interesting because it covers the person's experience outside of your website. Um, this might be a bit small to see, but along the top here, we've got the stages of people being aware and using your product. So awareness is, at what point are they aware of your thing, your service or your website? The point at which they first arrive. So where do they land? And then the actions are what they do on your website. And then the follow-up is what happens after they've been on your website. So do you get back to them with an email, that sort of thing? Um, and again, it's useful to map out this customer experience, or user journey mapping, customer journey mapping. So you can think about all this kind of opportunities for touch points. So um, there's a theatre analogy here. So front stage is what the person sees. Backstage is the workings you have to do to kind of keep that working, or things happening. Um, and then we can also have pain points and opportunities. So pain points might be, um, if we want to track them in this case, if they're on Safari on a mobile, you can't track them by default. So, there's issues there. It can be user pain points, like if they forget their login details, that sort of thing. And then opportunities are, having visited the website, we have an opportunity to maybe email them later if they've signed up to a newsletter, that sort of thing, or, try and gain repeat visits. Um, there's links in the presentation to versions of these, so you can go and have a look at them, and you'll be able to read what's on them, that sort of thing. So those are two ways. We've got the flow chart, which is where people go, and then user journey mapping is the whole experience from awareness to after visiting your site or service. If you've got something which is more complex, you can do task modeling, which is just specifically about one task on the website. And this is probably too small to see, but um, it's the process of someone discovering an audio book or written book to read or listen to. And so we're going through the journey from left to right. Someone shared a link to this thing, they sign up, they search for stories. We're mapping sort of pain points here, different parts, what they do when they get suggestions, they read or listen to it, they listen to the audio, they can tag it or share it, that sort of thing. It's worth mapping this out because you will refine the process. You will think about what the experience means to them, what happens in it, and it's a good way to approach, creating complex functionality.
And you put yourselves in the shoes, very much is the key theme here, putting yourselves in the shoes of your customer, of the
Mm.
or the person you want to engage with, the person you want to be a part of your project, whatever the call to action is. You're thinking, well, how are they going to find us, and what? But we all know when this hasn't been thought about on a website. When it's been thought about, it's a beautiful experience. It's seamless, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And it is, if you've already built something, this is a technique to use to sort of map it out in a different way.
Yeah.
Or you can take screenshots of the thing that you've built and put those in a line in Miro and then think about
And it
that.
might help you understand why people aren't doing what you want to on your website. You know,
Yeah,
this whole kind
exactly.
of, we're not abandoned carts. You know, a lot of, no, not many of these projects are selling a thing, but if it's kind of like we're getting engagement, but then they're not going on and filling in the form or finding the, downloading the piece of research, whatever, if they're
Mm.
not doing the call to action that we've built the website for, this task modeling might be a really good way to kind of look at why that, along with your analytics, might help you understand where it's breaking,
Yeah, exactly.
where we're not putting the point across in the right way, or we're not communicating it very effectively.
Yeah.
Or just not making it
Also,
obvious where the button is.
yeah, and it's also, it's a very quick way to theorizing new approaches rather than
Yeah.
having to design all the screens. You can design it as a process. Think about it that way.
And you could have a couple of different processes. You could have a bit of split testing in, couldn't you? That's always the fun, making assumptions about how people come through, but you could have a couple of options.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All about experimenting. That's the key thing, is that these are all, every website is a living entity.
Yeah, it's never finished. It's never kind of like done, leave it,
It should always
it'll
be
evolve.
evolving with knowledge. Your project, if project evolves, your website should evolve, your customers, your people you want to reach on your project will evolve. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so we've thought about structure, we've thought about you know, what people do on it and where they go. The next stage is thinking about sketching or wireframes. So we'll do sketching first. Um, I really like sketching in the design process. It allows you to get out ideas out really, really quickly, and it's really good for collaborative sessions as well. So getting lots of ideas from lots of people, having them kind of verbalize the rationale behind what they've done is good. There's some examples here. We had the one on the left. We actually had someone who'd done, she was an artist, and then we turned up into these amazing sketches in this workshop, which was great. The middle one, it doesn't really sort of matter. Kind of, you don't have to be an artist. Um, it's all about getting ideas out quickly. And then on the right, someone who was not a visual sort of person, just breaking it up and thinking about what do we need to get across and structuring it like that. Um, these are all designs for the same page as well from the same workshop, so really useful to do and talk about. Um, there's some shorthand for sketches which you can sort of see in some of these. So page elements can be boxes, images or a box with a cross in. Titles can be wavy text, can be just straight lines, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's all about getting ideas out quickly. So no prizes for artistry. Um, Wireframes are sort of the next level of fidelity up from sketching. They're black and white. There's no real visual design involved with them, no style particularly. What we're really trying to get across is hierarchy, content, and functionality. So what happens on a page. Um, there's lots of tools to allow you to create these. Figma is very popular. You can get an education version for that as well. There's Sketch, there's a thing called mockups, they're all linked to in the presentation. PowerPoint as well, or Canva, which we mentioned earlier. Those are all tools that you can draw boxes and put text into. That's all you have to do to create wireframes. And again, it starts you thinking visually about what happens on the pages in terms of content and functionality. So useful to do. Let me see, trying to move over here. We've got an example here. So you can see, we've got our research, the different research themes, a link to all the research projects, other areas of our work, research projects with the themes, latest news, this sort of thing. And you're getting into the detail of the content and functionality of what can happen. So yeah, worth doing. Either sketching or wireframes or both. If you come to getting to hiring a designer, wireframes, and what they'll sort of work off. Um, and yeah, you can start making these prototypes as well. I sort of mentioned prototyping before, but prototyping is really useful. It acts as a sense check of what you're creating. You can share it with collaborators to talk about, this is the thing we're going to build or we're going to do. Um, just so you create that shared understanding and get feedback internally with your team.
Again, it takes it
Um,
away from being conceptual and you can start moving things around.
yeah, and irons out that thing of like we both thought knew what we were talking about, but actually we had completely different ideas of what this thing would be.
Absolutely. Well, people have
Um,
different visions. Again, trying to explain the vision. But
mm,
also, if you mock something up, you can then go, oh, I don't like that. You talked it through, and I think it's going to be this, and you've drawn it all up, and you mock it up in maybe Canva, because we've already got our Canva assets, and then
mm,
go, oh, that doesn't work. Or, oh, that reminds me of this website. That's what's quite interesting when you get your colorways and your branding together. You might go, oh, God, that looks like a diner over, a beautiful project. It's kind of got the wrong energy to it, or the typeface is wrong. There's quite a lot of
yeah,
kind of little nuances you can do with prototyping. You start thinking about what do you want your typeface to look like?
yeah, exactly.
What images are you going to use? Oh my God, I haven't got any images. Better go and get some good ones. It
Yeah,
it starts making you think about all the assets that you need when you start putting it together.
yeah. The other good thing you can do is test with the users. So get 5 people and ask them to try and perform some of the key tasks you just established in the audience work you did earlier. Um, give them the prototype and watch what they do. Um, Try not to help them, and just let them sort of struggle, and you'll see things that you can improve. And they always surprise you. You always learn something through doing
So you get
usability
too
testing
close,
with
don't you? If you've
prototypes.
built it, you know how it works. Whereas you give it to somebody else and watch them work it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Another advantage is you can use real data in something. So I'll show you some examples and that will become a bit clearer. So some of the tools we used in the wireframe stage can be used for this. So Figma and Sketch, they have got quite powerful prototyping functionality where you can link multiple pages together to navigate them. Um, you can just have images which are hand-drawn sketches or exports from Canva or PowerPoint or what have you, and they can be stitched together with an app called Marvel, and again, so you can navigate them. Um, PowerPoint, you can link between slides, so you can build, a website prototype in PowerPoint. Canva, I think you can. I'm not sure how you link things, but you might be able to. And then moving into sort of more complex stuff, you've got HTML using frameworks. So a framework is a batch of code that gives you a lot of elements you can use for free, and you just sort of move those around to build pages,
And very
and you can
typically,
build.
Canva basically have got a whole pile of templates. So you haven't
Mm,
even, you can just go, uh, children's nursery project or something like that, and it'll have all examples of that. Or
okay.
it's got a typical Canva, so it'll take away the blank sheet completely and allow you to play around with that. But you can also put your color palettes in depending on what level of Canva you have. As ever, some are free and some are paid. But yeah, you can tell it what type of project you have, and it'll give you some options
Yeah,
that
so
kind of
HTML
kind.
frameworks are fairly similar to that, apart from we're talking about code.
Cool.
And then you've got website builders like Squarespace and Wix and so on. So we've got some examples of this. So yes, we have. This is Marvel, so we've imported this picture of a page, and then we can draw these hotspots to link them to other pages, and that means when we play it, if we click here, you can see those blue sections. So I can navigate this site now using those blue links, um, and so this allows you to build a prototype when it's just a deck of pictures really. Um, it's in the way. Sorry. This is a prototype we did for the Met Office. It was a custom survey tool to ask the public what they thought of different weather icons. So here we're showing the process through working through the screens in a different format question. So look at this weather symbol. What do you think it means? I think it means cloudy. Next question. Okay, this one we've got a probability slider, and so this is a really good tool just to mock it up and share this with the client to say, this is what we're thinking about building. Um, you know, here's all our different question formats. And yeah, this was a really good way of demonstrating, here's our thinking as to how we can approach this. Um, this is another prototype. This is for a charity where you pledge to make lifestyle changes to impact the environment, and you do it by pledging around a sporting event. So you can see, I can click through this, and yeah, we've got a working prototype. Again, that's just pictures and hotspots to link to things. This is an HTML prototype built with a framework called Bootstrap, and it's for an English language center. It was so we use this to test with young people who are learning English as a second language, and we built this tool to basically kind of prototype how this works. It's a course finder for them. So you can see, we've got this working framework here. And then last of all, we had, this is a WordPress site with real data for New College Swindon. So again, it's a course finder. So the thing we were testing is, looking at these filters, what did people want to do? We found qualification levels no one understood, so we got rid of that. And we're testing here with real data, so this is their real course list, which we wanted to test with real content in this case.
We've got a really good question in from Laura, who says, I was involved in building a website in my last role. It was for an NHS funded project, and accessibility requirements had to be met and retrofitted, which sounds painful as a sentence.
Yes,
You really do need to think about those accessibility requirements at the beginning of the conversation.
yes.
How do these tools approach that, or how do you approach that basically in a project? Because you know, I think no matter what the project is,
Yeah, there's two aspects to it. So at this
yeah,
stage, it doesn't need to be accessible because you're just testing prototypes, and prototypes should allow you to test what you want to find out in the least time possible. So you don't have time for making it look pretty, you don't have time for accessibility, that sort of thing. Caveat to that is unless you're testing with an audience that has accessibility needs or assistive technology needs. Accessibility really comes in two places, which is visual design and development. So when you're designing the color schemes and font sizes and things like that of a design, and then when you build the code should be accessible too. You should aim for AA standard. So there's single A, AA, AAA standard. AAA is like your Gov UK website where it's super functional. AA is what we always aim for with every client project we run. For the most part, it's achievable. Bits that you might fall over is on its PDF, but yeah, you do need to consider it at the design stage really, and then it's around color contrast and that sort of thing. I think I bring it up later in the project, but
oh,
if I
cool,
don't, I'll do it in the visual design bit, and
brilliant,
hopefully we've got some examples there of how that can work.
thank you.
Um, if not, I'll show you how we test, on a website in this. Um, okay. Well, where's my presentation gone? Hmm. Okay, that's interesting. I didn't
Cool.
close it. Bear with me.
No problem at all.
Oh, here it is.
Yay.
Found it again. Can you see it?
Yes, we can.
All right, okay. Weird. Um,
Oh, it's saying it's loading now. Oh, there we go. Perfect.
okay, so that's prototyping, and yeah, I mean, there's all those different fidelities. There's value in doing it. You know, you always learn something when you put things you've designed in contact with users and observe them using it. Okay, so content. It's good to create content before you get, well, perhaps potentially even before this wireframe process. It's always easy to design with real content. And again, you can test your content with the user needs and just make sure they cover the task that people are going to try and achieve. Um, People read differently on the web than they do on paper. They scan a lot more. They scan an F shape, F sort of pattern. you should aim to be super concise, and there's a bunch of stuff you can do to sort of test content around, like, it's hard, especially when you're trying to communicate, technical research, but it's best to try and keep the language as simple as possible. Um, a lower reading age in terms of, comprehension for text, opens opens it up to more people, but it also makes it easier to read for everyone. There's some links here around sort of writing for the web. The NIHR have got a really good guide around communicating, healthcare research, which might be transferable. There's a couple of other links there around, writing well for the
And
internet.
you might want to get someone to give you a hand with that because sometimes it's really hard writing about your project because you're too close and you know all the acronyms, all the jargon, you know too much, the curse of knowledge. And again, if you've really got to put yourself into the shoes of your potential end user or the person you want to work with, you might want to interview them about what they think about the project and their relationship to it and use their words.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I think it's so important quite often for us not to write our own websites, which is a bit weird, isn't it? But it's like writing your own CV, isn't it? It's quite good for someone looking in to tell you
Yeah,
why it's great.
yeah,
Otherwise, you
most,
end up talking at people, which is what so many websites do.
yeah,
They forget the
um,
why and they go on about the what and the how, and you're like, oh, I'm not very excited about this.
yeah. Most of the institutions you're attached to as well will have, a comms person, and I'm lucky, and a lot of my clients are, well, most of my clients are comms people. They engage me to produce websites for them, but they're all very good and skilled at, communicating science or research, that sort of thing.
Yep.
But the institutions you belong to should have some guidance around how to write for the web. That's quite common these days. Um, Images, so try and avoid stock photography if it's too cheesy. I've got a link to a list of image libraries here. It's also worth paying attention to the content of those images. If and making sure things like diversity is considered, both racially, gender, age as well. There's some good image libraries
And
there
try and
which
get your own
are
images
of
if you
sort of
can. I
older
would
people.
say if you're thinking about building a website, just make it a bit of a mission to grab your own images as much as you can. We have a slightly random question from Flossie about a very specific
Mm.
tool by the sound of it called Terminal 4, T4, to build websites.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
oh, you've heard of it? Okay, no. Basically, it sounds like our website and sub-websites for each school are hosted on T4 and have pre-designated pages, so we can't edit very much. We can only
yeah.
change the layout slightly. It doesn't sound fun. And what she's asking is if I wonder if there's a way to design a prototype in T4 rather than the other tools, as we have to work with specific design constraints and don't have much freedom. Oh, see, Maya was sharing Flossie's pain, the dreaded T4 bane of my life. There's not a lot of love for this platform.
No, no, no. I mean, I'm trying to think. I'm working with someone at the moment who's, I
I
think it's
guess
Exeter.
if you have
Exeter
very
Uni
specific
have it.
constraints, I guess you could create your Figma or your whatever tool with the constraints of T4.
You could do. I mean, yeah, one of my clients does have T4. Exeter Uni use it. We don't use it for our projects because they sort of operate outside of it. But yeah, I know it's got constraints. So you could design it within that. Whoever you're attached to, what your institution, if they have T4, you could produce sites with that. Then you're in the territory of using a framework. I think that's probably a good idea because then you're not going to design something you can't actually do.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
there are
imagining it has a test area.
potentially, I'm not, like, we've never actually had hands-on experience using it
Ah, okay,
because we
fair enough.
don't build with it. But yeah, most content management systems have the notion of private areas or password protected areas or, draft areas. So you might
Yeah,
be
they're
able
all
to do
saved as
that.
draft by the look of that. Yeah, it needs to be,
Yeah.
yeah,
So yeah, it is a good idea. Like if you're quite tightly constrained, then
work within that. Don't get
yeah.
overexcited about design you can't achieve.
That, or what you could do is
Mhm.
if you could create a page which has everything on it that you can do, you could screenshot that page and then cut it up and use it as a collage tool to build
Yeah.
wireframes from elements you've got. Um, that's one sort of technique we use when we have a pre-existing system that we can't adapt too much.
Somebody's mentioned they use Squarespace as satellite sites for external audiences. So again, that's something we couldn't really comment upon around each institution, but I know at the University of Bath we have some Squarespace sites as well for some of the external pieces of content.
Yeah, yeah, that sometimes that works too. Depends on your project really. If it's got its own, if it stands on its own, or whether it's part of the institution you're part of. But yeah,
Yeah, it tends to be if IT isn't hosting it, you have a bit more flexibility.
yes, university IT departments are quite busy, so sometimes best avoided.
Yes.
So, um, but yeah, what else do we have? Video.
We
So
did a whole session on Tuesday about the joy of video, telling
there
us
you
to
are.
read
There you
through
are.
video and how impactful that can be.
Yes. Um, if you want to have video on your website, put it on something like YouTube or Vimeo first. Most of the time we use YouTube because it's got its own ecosystem. So
Yeah.
your videos can find their way there, not just on your website. And you can, if you don't want that to happen, you can lock it down so your YouTube videos are only playable on your website on a specific URL.
Yeah.
But yeah, you want to have it on that platform so it distributes it rather than you trying to do it with video files on your website.
And we talked a
Um,
lot about the fact that, especially if you've got a complex project or a lot of messages to get through, a video
mm,
is a great investment, but it is an investment. As on Tuesday, it's generally, you should budget around £1,000 a minute for standard video, double that for animation. And you have to
yeah,
go through all the same process we've done today of why and who and how
yeah,
and look at the budgets and the return on investment and why don't please you probably don't need a 10-minute video
yeah,
and all those sorts of pieces because you have a beautiful video. I love so many lovely websites have like an opening hero video.
mm, yeah, that's true. Did you talk about captioning?
We did.
Cool. Okay, so accessibility wise, you should have caption videos.
And how people get it so wrong by putting the captions along the bottom where sometimes you've got other icons or
Mm,
yeah, Ross was saying about the bottom third really should have the captions in and you should consider what else might be popping up there.
yeah, that's true. I'll move on from this then. Okay, here we are, readability and accessibility of content. So um, we've talked about simplifying content. It is hard to do. There are some tools to help you. So if you want to test the readability, then this tool is quite good for doing that. You can copy and paste your text in there, or you can point it at a website. And it gives you these metrics. So Flesch Kincaid, Gunning Fog score, and Smog index are all metrics by which you can measure the complexity of your content. Some give it in a reading age. The Smog index has its own metric, and the Flesch Kincaid, I think, is US education grade level. Um, there's also a content analysis tool called The First Word, and I used Hemingway Editor, which is a really good writing analysis tool. It helps you simplify the content that you write. I wrote a book about prototyping in 2017 and used Hemingway to break up my really long sentences and make it easier to read. So yeah, it's free as well, so it's good to look at. You can just use it online. Um, but yeah, it's worth spending some time with that. You don't want to design a beautiful website and then last minute put some content in it that is too complex or too long or doesn't perform well. Okay, so we're into the design stage now, and there's two sort of routes here. So we've got a structure and we've got wireframes. So what happens on each page, um, and if we're using a website builder like Wix or WordPress or that sort of thing, then usually your experience is something like you go in and you choose a theme, which is a pre-designed sort of website, bunch of templates, and use that. And what you're going to be looking for is when you look at those themes, you want something which is similar to the layout that you've already designed. So that's something to bear in mind. Then, once you've got your theme, usually you can customize the fonts and the color palette used and that sort of thing. Um, if you're using a design agency or freelancer, they will produce the designs for you. They'll use your work you've done already, like wireframes or sketches, to guide them. But they will change the layout, and as they get creative, they'll make different decisions and turn it into a design. Um, the things they'll sort of need to guide them. So as well as the stuff you've done prior to this in terms of structure and functionality and content, is your brand identity. So what goes into your brand would be your logo, your colors, your font. Um, another couple of things that's worth showing them, as Lucy said, was websites you like the look of, examples of things you like, and then also examples of things you don't like that are not suitable for the product you're trying to design.
It's so important that, and I know that feels like it's really obvious, but I always ask people, send me a list of websites you really like. So when I used to manage students at Sussex, who used to build little baby sites for some of our startups, and I did it be like, send me three that you love and three that you hate, and tell me why, because
Mm.
you can really, it could be the usability, it could be the colors, it could be they could be too loud, but if you kind of talk it all through, it's a really good way again from it not just being a blank sheet of paper.
Yeah,
So
exactly. It
a
brings
bit,
in
yeah.
margins for them to operate in, and designers, they need constraints
Even when
to kind of
you're going around Wix
operate
or
against.
Squarespace, you go, oh, I really like that. Why do I like it?
Mm.
And some
Yeah,
really speak
exactly.
to you. And it's not always entirely logical. But you just go, that just really feels like it has the right energy for my project. Is your project really vibrant, or is it quite serious? Is it quite contemporary? Is it quite traditional?
Yeah, there's those things like tone and approach and how you want it to feel.
Yeah.
Um,
And the people are going to access it. If you're trying to get people along who aren't traditionally very confident online, that's a very different website.
yeah, and there's things like trust as well. Like some of the research stuff we've done, we've had instances where we don't want it to look like it's NIHR or NHS, and avoid using that blue because there's a trust issue between the people we're designing for and those institutions. So yeah, it's worth thinking about.
And colour is a really interesting point. There's a whole lot of research about the colours of websites, isn't there?
Mm,
About what all the colours mean. It's a rabbit hole
yeah,
we shouldn't go down right now, but yeah.
yep, yep.
But
Um,
they all have different energies to them, literally. And so you'll look at there's a graphic I've seen with all the different logos of companies you've heard of and where they sit in the colour wheel and what they then want their brand to be represented by
yeah,
from a colour perspective. It's fascinating.
yeah, it is, and there's decisions you can make there to kind of align with things or go against them. But yeah, in terms of a brand identity, the minimum you sort of need is a logo. So in this case, it's my brand. So we've got B Team, and it can work as just the logo, which has got the B in it, or the logo with the name. There's a bunch of examples. Some of them have a sort of motif, kind of graphic element with them. Some of them, like Greenhouse, are just the name style, where it's just text and a color. Both are fine. The text name style one is the easiest to do.
And
And
again, I
then,
have some fun. I was playing on ChatGPT for a logo for a
mm,
project. It didn't design the end logo, but again, I worked out what I didn't like. What did it
yeah,
need to say? What colors, what energy?
yeah, exactly.
There's a question
Um,
here about some free websites can take ownership of your content as soon as you start using their platform. Is that true that some of the free websites can take ownership of your content? Any suggestions for a website that's not expensive where you keep ownership of your content?
I don't know. Sorry. Self-host, like I don't know. Yeah, I don't know quite what the transfer of intellectual property is when you sign up to something like Wix or Squarespace or that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, it is something to be aware of, particularly if you're presenting, your work, your research. So yeah, sorry, I don't know about that one.
No, it sounds like fair
It is a
enough.
good point though.
What
You
one to
do.
investigate? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. What we could do is we can have a look. We can when we go through the Squarespace sort of test trial run through. We'll have a look and see if we can identify that in the sign up process.
And I would also look at the content you want to keep ownership of. So if
Mm,
it is a white paper or if it's something like that could be hosted somewhere separately that someone uses your website to access. Most website content for me is imagery and words that
mm,
is publicly acceptable to be accessible I don't think that it's intellectual property is basically what we're worried about somebody else having access to. So where that's hosted potentially,
yeah, exactly.
you wouldn't host
Yeah.
that on a website. So I think it's one.
No, so you could, say you had a paper, you could talk about the paper and its outcomes and all that sort of thing on the website, but link the actual paper and have that saved somewhere else.
Yeah. with some sort of
mm,
gatekeeping or data field for access. So I think, as with anything, anything you put out anywhere, like ChatGPT is a good example, anything you put into that tool is publicly accessible. Anything you put onto a website is publicly accessible.
mm.
But we wouldn't be putting our blueprints on it, for example.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Um, Another part of the brand identity that's useful to give to a designer is the web colors or the color palette you want to use. And then we've got typography as well. So what fonts you're using. Google Fonts is a good place to try out fonts. They're all free and can be used online as well. Um, yeah, I think
And
I'd
try
cover
the
that
different
there.
fonts on the different views, because you might have a font that looks great on a website, but you try it on a phone, it looks absolutely terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
Back to accessibility. There are some very funky, very awful fonts out there.
Yeah. Um, so here as well, you've got some color palette generators to help you choose a color palette. Okay, and then around color accessibility. So let me think about this. So when you're looking at, so yeah, so you can test color contrast checkers. So what you're looking for is when you put text over a color, say for a button, you want to make sure there's enough contrast for it to pass accessibility standards. So in this case, we have blue text, which is a standard link text on a white background, and you can see it, it it's shown here, and you've got, the WCAG double A is what I mentioned before, and then triple A. So say, let's see, let's put this on um, a black background and we'll have grey text. You can see that that fails, it's very faint. We bring it up a bit, so that's passing. So you can adjust your color values until you get something which
And again, you'd think this is
passes.
quite basic, but we've all been on websites where this fails.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
It's hard to see. A sort of non-technical, non-scientific way of doing this is closing your eyes half closed and then looking at something and see if you can still see it. So if I close my eyes half and look at this, I find it very hard to read
that top
that.
one's
So
hard. Yeah, I don't
whilst
like
it
that.
passes double A, like
Yeah,
that's not good enough for me. It would want to be something like that where it's white, black.
yeah.
Um, when you're looking at um, your color palette, there's combinations of colors that you can use, and there'll be combinations of colors that you can't use. So here I want to be looking at what can we use the orange on the blue? Can we use the blue on the orange? That sort of thing. So that's your first sort of accessibility sort of check to do is, color contrast. Do you have, what color combinations can you use for text on color? Um, and then you've got things like font size. So minimum font size I do on, put on the web is 16 pixels. You want to keep it above that. Smaller than that is hard to read for anyone. Okay. Um, Development of the websites. This is the building piece. So at this stage, we have designs. If you've gone through the process with a designer, what they're likely to do is produce initial designs. You'll review them together. You can have feedback and change them, and they'll come back to you with finished ones. That's just sort of generally the sort of consultative process that you go through. Um, in this case, so now we've got designs or we've got an idea of what designs you want to do, or you're using a website builder, then you're at this point. So we'll talk about the website builder first. So you know what you want to do is get into that website builder, set up an account, and then it will present you with different themes or layouts and that sort of thing. And so you might want to think about what layouts you've got in your wireframes and try and match them, find a design that matches. Um, yeah, and then from there it will allow you to create a website. So um, I haven't used Squarespace in years. we can have a go. Um, and so yeah, so with Squarespace, they are actually ask us what we're trying to do.
A lot of them do this now because a bit like Canva, they've got a whole playbook of all the other people who've used this website. And Squarespace,
mm,
Wix, Weebly have all been going for at least 10 years, haven't they? Maybe 15.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So
they all know what people have built. So yeah, it's kind of
yeah. So I was quite surprised when you sort of see this. We've got social sciences here, so we're going to click on that and next. And then what would you want our website to do? So I'm going to say showcase work and expertise.
should we build a community as well? Quite like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And promote an event and publish
Well,
a
this
blog.
is really good actually, because you've gone through this process in your build, haven't you? And also, you might want to do some of these in the future, so it's good to know the functionality is there.
Yeah, you should know this stuff. There should be, what is the functionality you've designed
We've
to
already
deliver
decided what
against
we're
your
doing
user
here.
needs.
Yeah,
So yeah, oh, we've got an AI builder. That's interesting.
nice.
Um, so I'm going to go with browse templates first, and then we'll try and back out and do the AI builder. So here, it's suggested some best template matches. You can see on here we've got a type, so we've got portfolio, blog, that sort of thing. Um, there's a lot more here that you can see. So if we go
But
through
will
this and
you
just think,
immediately
okay,
all have reactions to those?
yeah, exactly. And, you know, we can sort of think, okay, well, actually, my layout was a bit more like this one, or actually, we want to show lots of things. Let's use this one. Um, so yeah, you would choose one of those. So let's think. We'll choose one like um. God, I'm not really speaking to me,
This is
but
why you have to build your template before you go on here, because this is a massive rabbit hole. This is like being on Pinterest, isn't it? It's like, oh, that one looks lovely,
yeah.
that
So
one looks
that's
lovely, that one looks
yeah. So
lovely.
that one's like Pinterest. So, but that's
Yeah.
not maybe not what I
No, but I mean,
want.
lots of choices. It's kind of like
Yeah,
so it's good if you have your format, you're then going, well, I know what my build needs to look like, so I'm going to pick the one that looks like my build plan.
yeah. Let's go with the one it suggested.
Cool.
So here we get a demo when it loads. So that's it animating. So it's got this animation thing going on. I can look at it on a phone. Worth considering, where your users will be. And it's got a menu. That's cool. And then we can change the colors. So we've got color palette here on the right. I'm not really sure what it's changed. It's changed the background there. So let's go with that one. And then start with this design. You can see, oh, how do I create an account? Create with email. I'll spend 10 minutes doing this just so you can sort of see. Uh,
And the logic is pretty identical across all the different platforms now.
I'd say so. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
really build sites with these tools.
No, I was thinking if someone's
Um,
on a Wix or a Weebly, if we're at that
yeah,
level where we want to create a little baby mock-up, or we've done all the mock-ups, we want to just create a simple landing page to go live. I think these are really great for quite simple websites.
yeah. So you can
Then
see here it's created you a URL. So Cranberry Marlin 9F92. That's your .squarespace.com. So here we wanted to call it My Squarespace Sites. Edit pages. Okay, that's fine. Create pages. So it's teaching me how to sort of create things using this sidebar nav.
it's so intuitive, isn't it?
Dial it, get started. Okay, so we can navigate it here. So this is our about page. We have a podcast.
And we can change all the names of all the pages.
Yeah.
Everything's fluid.
And then here you've got a list of pages. So the podcast one. Let's have a look at that. Don't know what I'm doing, but some settings about the page. Let's try
And
and
what's
edit some
something they have
content.
upped the game on? The SEO on these used to be terrible,
Mm,
and they have really upped the game on that. It's not as good as WordPress, but it's and I think a lot of our projects we're not looking to be Google found. These are projects created for already engaged audiences.
yeah. I'm on quite an old laptop and it's making a lot of noise with its fans. It's, um, but yeah, essentially here, we'll be able to edit our podcast episodes. I'm assuming from this page because we can see there's page, there's the episodes there. Sure what sound check is, but you can add and edit pages to this site. So let's see if we hit the edit button here. I'm not sure what that's going to do. Oh, okay, here we are. So we're into, we can just click and type content into this. That's the site
Because the way
footer.
my brain works, I know all the beautiful planning, but I know what I'd do. I'd probably end up diving into one of these and
Section.
having a play.
Yeah, I do. This is adding sections, so it's got pre-designed sections that you can use. So if you want to show the team, or what might we want to show? Maybe a quote. There's different ways of
Nice.
doing that.
Yeah.
So let's click on one, and it just gets added to the page, and then you can add more elements to it. So it allows you to build with different pieces of content and functionality. Right, I'm going to back out of there, and I'll let you try the AI version of that for yourselves. I'll be interested to see what that comes
That's
up with.
homework. Go and have a play. Go and have a play in Squarespace AI.
Yeah,
And I
but
think Canva's got AI as well. I think they all have that kind of tool, but it's quite good that you've got all this on that little free trial.
I think everyone's trying to do that, and with the sort of large language models, they're just looking at all the pictures of the internet and scraping all the content from the internet and then regurgitating it in patterns they think are popular. So that's its process, and it will, I'm sure it will deliver a nice looking website, but then you probably need to tweak it to be suitable for your needs.
Absolutely. But it's
Um,
still it's just less daunting. I think we've always had the narrative of AI. It doesn't take away from the creativity, but it does get you started.
yeah, exactly. And you could rerun it. I imagine you can rerun it a couple of times and go, do it again, change your prompt, do it again.
Yes.
Yeah, that sort of thing. So that's the general web builder experience. It will give you a starting point. You can add elements to it. You can add your own content and you can share it again. So it's good to do if you just want to try and get something up and running. Um, they all, like Lucy said, they all work in roughly the same sort of pattern. Create your account, pick a website that you like the look of, change the colors, and then start editing it. Um, with an agency, so they will build something. Usually this part of the process goes pretty quiet because it's just execution. We have the design, we have the content, we're going to build that to make it work. What they should do is present you with a working website, usually called a dev site or a test site, for you to review. They might ask you to enter content. They might do that for you. It's good for you to do it, so you learn how to use that system. And you should be able to review that website before it goes live, and make sure it's as you want it to be. It should be, again, that consultative process. If they present something, you review it, make some changes, they iterate it, and you launch when you're happy. Yeah, and then once you have something that's ready to go live, you should test it. So your agency should test it for you, but don't trust them just to do it. You should test across modern browsers. So Chrome, Safari, Edge, Firefox, and then looking at Safari and Chrome on Apple devices and Chrome on Android devices. That's the most common sort of browser set your people will be using. When I say testing, what we want to be doing is just looking at the website in those browsers to see if it still works the same way.
I'm clicking on every single link. I'm clicking on every button. I am going back and forth and through, and you're doing really thorough user testing because
Yeah,
there's always a thing that's been missed.
yeah, exactly. And just by getting people to use it. So I don't know if I cover usability testing per se in this. We have talked about it for prototypes, but at this stage, you've got a working website. You can get 5 users and throw them at the website and say, try and achieve these tasks, and then observe them or record them doing that just on a call like this is how we do it these days. It's good to do it while you're on the call, so you're moderating it,
Yep.
because you get the opportunity to ask people why they did the thing they just did that you never expected them to do.
Yeah.
And as I said before, every time you involve users in the design process, you learn something more about what you've created.
Mm.
Um, So yeah, and it's also worth doing that. If you built a Squarespace site, it should work. You may actually have limited ability to change how things work in there, but you're just making sure everyone gets the same experience. Um, yeah, so when your website's live, you can make it live. You can buy a domain from a host like Gandhi is a good one. Domains cost about £10 a year usually. If you're on a budgeted project, so assuming a lot of you are involved in research, a lot of my research projects that I work with have a time limited budget, say 4 years or something, and then everyone who works on that is off doing a different project, so no one's there anymore. You can buy a domain for 10 years via Gandhi and other platforms. Other domain registrars are available. And it's worth considering doing that so your website just stays there for 10 years. Um, we've had research projects which had, millions of pounds of funding, and after 5 years, they just get switched off because no one considered budgeting for the server to be alive for, for another 5 years, even though that doesn't really cost very much. So at launch, you need cookie consent. So that's privacy permissions for people. There's free and paid plugins that allow you to do that. If you're on something like Squarespace, it should come with it. You can set up tracking so you know what people are doing on the site. So usually you use Google Analytics for that. You should share a sitemap with the Google Search Console. So a sitemap is a list of pages. I don't know if I click on that, what it looks like. Okay, yeah. I will not bounce around in the presentation now. So I've got some examples of that later. And then, you need to tell people about it. So publicize it on lots of different channels. Try and work out where your audiences hang out and, post about it there. Yeah. And once you're live, it's not really the end. It's just the beginning, feels like the end because you've completed a project. But past there, what you want to be doing is trying to work out how you can add regular content, whether that's news or updates or research projects, that sort of thing. You want to run sort of marketing, social media sort of campaigns to bring traffic to your site. Again, thinking about where your audiences hang out, where they congregate online, and going fishing for them there. Monitoring people's behavior on the website, you can do that with analytics, and there's other tools like Hotjar which record people's sessions, so you can watch people using your website after the fact, and that's sort of useful if you've got something that's interactive, just making sure people you can observe people going through it and making sure it's working. You can ask people for feedback, you can put surveys on your websites, that sort of thing, and then ultimately make improvements. So watch people, observe people, try and work out what's going on, and then how might you make it better. Okay, so we've got some tips. Got 15 minutes left, haven't we? Something like that.
Yeah, we're doing fine.
I'll race through the tips and then we can do questions and bits and bobs. So you might hear MVP bandied about as something an approach to kind of embrace. So an MVP is the minimum viable product. And its goal is to, well, I've got a quote here. The primary goal of an MVP is to minimize time and effort wasted by testing how the market reacts to your idea before building the complete product. So what you're launching or testing or building is just just what you need to try and work out, does this engage with people? You can also take a phased approach. So you might do that to save time or launch something quickly or because of budgets, but just deliver core functionality and then add bells and whistles later. So yeah, measuring traffic. I spoke about Google Analytics, which is free. It's quite complex. You might need some help sort of setting up things. There's lots of stuff online about how to build reports or views of data that are helping you. There's other ones like Plausible is one, Independent Analytics is another good one for WordPress, Matomo. And then with any website builder, you will have some traffic monitoring options available. Cookie consent. So GDPR, mandates cookie consent. Cookies allow you to track people. And so you need to ask people's permission before you do that. there's a bunch of options here, which we've used on different projects. Some are free, some are paid. A lot of them depend on what level of traffic you have. But yeah, they'll all plug into your site and do it for you. Okay, so sitemaps are something like this, where you have, so this is for Exeter BIC, so lots of research. You can see all the research projects are here. It's a big list. And this is connected to Google. So when you publish new content, Google checks this on a regular basis, and then these pages wind up in Google's index. So it's worth creating a Google Search Console, it's called. You can submit your sitemap there, and that helps your content get picked up by search engines. Content management systems. So T4 was mentioned earlier. The ones we tend to use that are quite good and friendly and popular with web agencies. So you've got that kind of backup in case your web agency gets hit by a bus, or you fall out with them, whatever, and you need to find someone else to pick it up. Then these are all solid choices for content management systems. Like we do a lot with WordPress. I think about 55% of the internet is WordPress these days, so it's really prevalent. Wagtail's good as well. Wagtail's something we use when we're building something which is a bit more bespoke or sophisticated, or has more complex sort of data systems in it. And then there's another one called Craft, which is pretty good. It's a nice experience for you editing it. It's not free though. It's got a model where everything, there's price, there's a cost for the core content management system, and then they've got a marketplace for all the plugins. Whereas with WordPress, most plugins are free, and then they may have a paid option with more functionality. Most of the ones we use are free though. So those are some solid options for content management systems. And there's a link here, which is, if you do choose to go down the route of hiring a design agency, this is a really good blog post about how you might do that, how to choose the right digital agency or freelancer for you. And that's it for me. Yeah, any questions?
Well, I'll say that point about
Oh,
choosing the right agency is always really interesting.
yeah,
Again,
sorry.
we've talked about this is kind of even up with the video as well, was
Hmm,
about making sure it's someone who really speaks the same language, who really gets what you mean, and maybe has a bit of a passion for your project.
yes. Um, yeah, that's true. There is a thing, certainly around chemistry, like how it feels to work with someone. That's really important.
Yeah, yeah.
Something I didn't cover, and I said I would, was accessibility. So we talked about
Ah, yes.
accessibility in terms of color contrast and stuff. So I'm going to go to Bath Uni's website, and I haven't done this before, but there is a tool which we use to test for accessibility, which is called Wave. It's free, and it does this. So it's reloaded the website and tested it, and Bath's doing pretty well actually. So there's no
Well, I'm
errors.
relieved as a member of the University of Bath team. I'm relieved that they're doing well.
Sorry, I picked on you.
That's all right.
And then it's got some alerts which aren't too bad, and if there's no errors and no contrast errors, then it passes. Let's think about somewhere else. Let's try Bournemouth. Find something, maybe something which fails, really. Okay. Yes, we've got issues here. So we've got 8 contrast errors and 3 other errors, and the details are empty buttons. So that will be that search button. So it's just got an icon in it. Now, if I'm using a screen reader, it doesn't verbalize that icon. So what this button should have in is the word search, and it could be hidden or not, but that's missing. That's a problem for people who are using assistive technology.
This is really good as a tool though because it focuses you. 'Cause again, you would have done as best you can in your build, but a tool like this just makes you again see the things you might have missed.
Yeah, and then the H1 here, so that's your main page title. Apparently that is failing on contrast.
Which again, it doesn't look too bad. Actually,
Yeah,
the
this
lighter one, the one in bold looks better than the other,
it
but
might be a false positive. It might not realize that there's an image behind it which has this white bit.
yeah.
So you could check that. Where else is it found? Let's see. Not sure where else, but yeah, this is a good tool for testing this sort of thing. It will check um, code issues, but also color contrast issues. So this is something you could test at the end. And it's also got some other sort of alerts. So we've got an image with a long alternative text. This gives you some guidance about those. Um, yeah, so it's got an image, which is the footer map. So where's that? Let's see. Oh, that map there has got some really long text. So map showing the locations of our Talbot campus and Lansdowne campus. Lansdowne is based close to the city centre of the beach, while Talbot's further around about 2 miles from Lansdowne. I think that's probably fairly good alt text because it does describe what's in the image.
Mm,
And describing a map is quite a complex thing to describe. It's not a picture of someone walking their dog.
yeah.
Um, so I think that's probably something you can sort of disregard in that testing. But yeah, this is sort of the Wave accessibility tool. You can add it to Google Chrome and then crack on with testing sites. But that's one of the tools we use for that. Um, yeah,
Well, I think to be fair, and I think we're all good. I think there's lots of food for thought. We've addressed the questions. We had lots of very lovely feedback
cool,
in the webinar chat. A lot of people had to disappear off to do teaching and other things, but I think there's lots of rich content. So
super. That's
thank
great.
you very much for your time today, Ben, and thank you very much to everyone all our participants, all the attendees. And so I am going to put the video on our YouTube channel after this, so everyone can watch back and delve into all your. I'm going to stop the recording.
Super.
You can delve into all the content and all basically avoid some of the rabbit holes. I think it's one of the key things, isn't it? And really get confidence